Islands are different, and that's all there is to it. And I've visited most of the offshore islands in New Zealand as a Minister of Conservation and with Forest and Bird and other guises. And Chatham Islanders are different from Great Barrier Islanders, are different from Stewart Islanders, and so it goes. And the same for us. There's a common thread nonetheless that runs through communities who live on islands. Waiheke was a diverse place made up of all sorts of characters. It was a colourful community. There were potters, painters, artists. There were highly engaged political activists and the peace movement. There were all manner of eccentrics and unusual people. Joe Waite with his dear old Model T, Bill Lord with his one arm. He loved to play the bugle. Bill Lord spoke fluent Māori, and he, even though he only had one arm, was a crack shot with a rifle. We had a lot of salty dogs, seafarers, World War II veterans and heroes. A really remarkable lot. I think there were different reasons that brought people to the island. Some people were running away. Some people came because they just loved the natural environment. Some people found it perfect for them to exercise their creativity. So there were different reasons that people came. It was the land of the old bomb. There were more horses, less people. Our community facilities were really important to us. The humble old sports club that was well loved and used for many years. The area school itself was a big focal part of community life. And all the little halls that were dotted around the island. So yes, it was a more rural place, I think it's fair to say. Sea air was wonderful, and it was a very valuable resource because there were times back in the day when this island felt a lot more isolated, that you could actually get to town in 10 minutes if there was an emergency elsewhere that you were heading off to. So I miss the old folk planes, they were fabulous. Boats like the Kestrel and the Baruna were beautiful old boats, and they were safe. They were cold, they were slow, but that all added to the value of the island in many ways. I recall when the first fast ferries started coming on or were being mooted by Fuller's ferries, and there's no doubt the fast ferries brought a lot of change in terms of how the island was to be after that. It became commutable. The early days of vineyard development on Waiheke, pioneered by people like the Goldwater family, certainly didn't see them get an easy run. Unfortunately, the noxious plants officers sprayed all their vines and wiped them out, and a long and arduous court case ensued. But they took a strong role in mentoring those who came later who wanted to plant grapevines. And really the development of viticulture on the island has changed the landscape quite considerably. Where there was manuka and kanuka and a lot of gorse, there are all now vineyards, and Waiheke is perceived as being the land of the vineyard. Political issues were hard fought out on Waiheke Island by our local community. Everything from conservation to the peace movement, as I say, recycling. There wasn't an issue that didn't come up on this island that wasn't thoroughly thrashed out by our local people. And it meant that we did a lot of things ahead of our time, really. We were the first local authority in New Zealand to declare ourselves nuclear free. And I can remember the town clerk of the day, who wasn't too impressed by this, commenting, "And do you think New Zealand's going to follow suit?" And I'm glad to say they did. But other issues like supporting homosexual law reform and that legislation, that was our county council, and lots of other initiatives. So yeah, they were a great bunch of people, and they made the island what it was, full of character. Everybody on the island followed through the Gulf News, every word uttered by every elected member of the old Waiheke County Council. So things that might be seem small on the mainland were a real big deal down here. It didn't matter what it was, how we managed our refuse, who said what to whom and when on any given day, was avidly read by the whole of the community. And when we got amalgamated in 1989, I think we lost a lot. Waiheke firmly opposed being amalgamated with Auckland City, and we were advocating that it would be better if all of the islands of the Gulf had a elected board that ran the islands alongside the Department of Conservation and the Auckland Regional Council and those who had an interest in the Gulf. But unfortunately we got jackbooted anyway, like poor old Devonport, into the Auckland City Council, and it was dreadful, really. Felt we were being colonised, and they made it very clear. So I think a bit has been lost. We ran a ticket in 1983 to stand woman for the county council, and we got 5 women elected back then, and we were very proud of that, because county councils tended not to have women on them anyway. So but some of the debates were hilarious. Like some of the older men who'd been on the county council for years would say things like, "Well, I suppose it'd be all right to have a Sheila or two, but you wouldn't want too many. A couple will do to make the tea." But also it was a wonderful opportunity for people interested in politics to get elected and have their say. And so I don't think that myself personally, that Auckland City Council, or now the Super City, have really done enough to protect the soul and the spirit of Waiheke. They've got curb and channelitis. They've put up road signs that look like they belong on the southern motorway. They, what they perceive as a problem, we might perceive as an asset in our community. The fees for halls like Surfdale are way, way too high, in my opinion. That hall we paid for as a community lock, stock and barrel the day we brought it down to the island. Again, our pensioner flats, we've had to buy them twice. We helped build them, we raised the money, and then the council wanted to sell them. So the Auckland City Council sold them to Housing New Zealand, so we paid for them twice, once as ratepayers and once as taxpayers. So I'm not convinced that big is better. Waiheke Islanders in general are not affluent. Things have changed here now. I think a lot of the people who come to live here now are professionals, and they're far more affluent. We've had a massive increase in our population. Towards the end of the 70s, I put the population of Waiheke at about 1,200 people, and everybody knew each other. You knew the person going past you by their car. People now do seem to be, generally speaking, a more affluent and professional type. And I think it's fair to say that they're still getting heavily involved in specific issues within the community. In the 70s, there were a hell of a lot of clay banks on Waiheke Island. The island had been seriously denuded, and it's good to see now that in most of the bays there's more native regeneration occurring, and respect for the trees and what they provide for our biodiversity. So, you know, there's good and bad. I do think the new community are perhaps a little bit, and it's a generalisation, but perhaps a little bit more stable, predictable than those that have gone before. The island is becoming more expensive, I believe. In the 70s, you could buy a section here for $500, $700 and pay it all for a tick. And a block of land like Stephen White's Vineyard would have been something like $15,000, $20,000 for a 10, 20 acre block. So it was a good place to come to if you weren't wealthy, because if you were prepared to work hard, you could eventually build yourself a reasonable place to live. And a lot of people did that. They would move into an old batch and bit by bit do it up over the years, tack on a bit here, tack on a bit there, replace your septic system, and so houses grew. It's growing in a different way now, and I do think that it is becoming a little bit more expensive. If you take, for example, the cafes and the restaurants and that, they're really geared of necessity towards an offshore tourism market. The old days of getting a nice country roast dinner down the old Onitangi pub are sort of gone. So pretty much everything is more expensive now, and the draw of the need to go to the mainland more regularly also adds to the cost, because our ferry tickets aren't cheap. So a real hope that I have for our community, given our wonderful feisty track record, is that we don't want a suburban complacency to slip in at the political level on this island, because islands are different. We're not just living, in a suburb. We're living on an island that is part of a maritime park. So we are the guardians for our time, no matter what the changes that come. The island is probably more expensive and a very different place now, but people still love coming here and people love living here, and that's the main thing.